She's got her stuff all ready.
Okay, wait. Thanks for your time, Mark. I really appreciate it. No, I'm locked into investors.
Haven't adjusted.
Got exactly what I was looking for. Doesn't touch it, Jen.
No, we get to that.
Okay. Yeah, we see it.
Or Tuesday, I got either one.
Are you available?
Personally,
April 23rd. Get everybody.
I think overall.
Yeah, we'll see.
What's
that? Yeah. Well, you can hang on. I think if you get caught up, just put it up for
On the 23rd. I have mediation on the 23rd.
There we go.
Perfect.
Welcome. The
Last year.
briefings are great.
Yeah.
I like this one. I like it.
Testing 1, 2, testing.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you.
What does that mean?
Yeah, if anything changes, I think you got my number anyway, right? But 8:30 on the 17th. So, John.
Greetings.
Not be here at all. Yeah, she's doing a big thing. She's got the cool. She weighs that. Don't try to come up tomorrow. No. That's why I was gonna watch it.
So she was.
It really was. And we're so glad. So I took you up on that recommendation. I gonna go meet up with him next Monday. So
Even see all the.
oh. You bring those for. Did you bring enough for everybody?
Yeah.
That's a marriage, okay.
It was not a hard decision.
We live in Utah, but bigamy's not on the table. You did bring enough for everybody last time.
Yeah, I think that's.
Expectations.
85.
Don't.
Having been a government employee for 31 years of my life, I have many expectations whenever someone gives me something. Bonuses, you know, the way we did all of it. We would get bonuses, for enlistment or extending your service. Like during the war, when we had like shorts of guys, like 50. But the trick was, you don't take the money until you go into a combat deployment. So I like, that's just tax free. If you re-enlist while you're in a combat zone, the bonus. So you keep all the money. And like, we got, it's like, we got a guy who up on the list, we do so many deployments, it's like, we should send you this month because then you can reimburse while you're over.
1 minute.
Anyway.
Hey, Brooke, are you? We're gonna start in a minute. You all know. Be quiet.
1, 2, 3.
I'm good if you're good. And you just wait, let's go.
I didn't view it.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the public hearing concerning the FY 2025 budget. Town of Alta. It's 4 p.m. on March 12th, 2025. And I believe before we accept public comments, our town clerk has something to say, right?
That's a bit.
Say that again?
That'll be later.
Oh, you're gonna do it later. All right. Well, in that case, we're open to public comments
On the budget, on the proposed budget.
on the budget for FY 25, not for everything else,
Right, including the capital projects plan amendments.
including the capital projects. Now, we have to wait all 5 minutes?
We do. We have to create space for comment.
Okay.
We want to.
But I want you to know it's well articulated amongst the three of you.
That's company.
Do we have anybody online? No.
I'm sorry, Roger, I missed your first comment. Did you say somebody had a statement to make?
I said that, but I was wrong. Because Jen is gonna make a statement concerning FY 25 somewhat later.
Yes.
Okay.
So, John, we're just in this mode where we're waiting for public comments. And anybody from the public can make a comment in the next 4 minutes.
Look what I have, like, no, I have. We have 5 minutes. I
Yeah.
have a luxurious 5 minutes to eat, I don't know.
Speed it up, we only have 3 left.
I'm pacing myself, I'm looking good.
Okay, it's now 5 after the hour and hearing no further public comments concerning FY 25 budget, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn. Yeah, by 25 budget, public hearing.
Second.
Second, any objection? The meeting is adjourned. All right, now I would like to call to order the town council, the Alpha Town Council meeting of March 12th, 2025 at 4:05 p.m. And open this meeting to citizen input. Are there any citizens who would like to address us? And here's a citizen. She emerges.
Sarah Gibbs, Alpha Community Enrichment. I came here 1 month ago to ecstatically announce that ACE was putting a bid in on Our Lady of Snows our home for 30 years. Ace has been around for 30 years. We're actually turning 28 tomorrow. The building is 30 years old. Been a great journey and super excited that we were finally going to own the home that we have been in. Now standing here today to express my extreme disappointment that the town is putting a bid in on the building. It's like living in your dream house for 30 years, goes up for sale, and then your best friend puts in a bid. And I don't wanna be in this place with my friends that are here in the town. I don't wanna be in this place with Ace. And I feel a lot of confusion and everyone has a right to change their mind. And some of the news of us putting a bid in on the building was brand new news to people, and so it was a shock, and they didn't have time to process the thought of it. The town has expressed that we can be a tenant if they purchase the building. Haven't received that in writing or details of a relationship from the town. We've been able to be in our Lady listeners for a minimal financial impact. And I don't know if the town is going to like the lease that we have. And I just don't know if this is the proper use of town money to obtain something that is isn't really essential right now. The town just did a $75,000 study. This building was deemed necessary to remodel or demolish. Same thing with Alta Central. I just think that a large amount of money, possibly $1 million, should be used elsewhere and let Ace have our time to shine. And I really hope the town finds kindness in this transaction instead of desire to have more in the town. I also look forward to see what happens with our partnership in the future, because no matter who owns it, we're gonna have to have a partnership. And I know that everything's gonna work out for both of us great in the end. But I also really look forward to the town hosting a public hearing on this to change the budget, whether it's this year's or last year's, because I know many community members are very concerned about this. So thank you for your time, and that's it, I guess.
Thanks, Sarah.
Can I say something, Sarah? The town is evaluating options on this matter and considering what's in the best interest of the town. And there has been no decision. And we're open to dialogue, which you have just offered some of, and we're open to dialogue elsewhere too. And we'll eventually come to a position, we'll certainly make that clear to everybody and why we came there.
Okay, and I apologize if I thought the town was putting a bid in, because I think that's what was communicated to me. So,
We haven't come to a decision.
good to know. Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Mark Hague. Attended the February Town of Alta Planning Commission meeting where Mr. Budge came in to discuss a new proposal from his client. And in introducing himself, he, specifically cited that they wanted to be very candid about their intention and their process, and working through the problems that they're trying to work through. And he also brought along a water expert with him, and he expressed to the planning commission that in an effort to quote show all the cards, they were going to have their water expert do the explanation of what was required to be successful with their efforts. And then the expert went on to explain the administrative steps before the state of Utah engineer. Subsequent to his remarks, there was only one question from the planning commission. And that was Mr. Boy. And Mr. Boy's query was, why does he keep talking about the state engineer and not Salt Lake City Public Utilities? And I would note that Mr. Boy is one of the longest serving persons that's an official in the town of Alta. He's served for quite some time. Maybe Mr. Nepstead is ahead of him, but he's served a long time. And he's had ample opportunity to query the staff, query the council. He sat through numerous executive sessions on public utilities. And so the question is like, well, why is it that Mr. Boy is so uninformed about the water applications that allow for the diversion of water, municipal water in the town of Alta? No one present, made any attempt to answer his question. Council was available, Mr. Niermeyer was available, the town of Alta consultant was available, but nobody could step forward to alleviate his query. So my question is how he's served for a couple decades. How is it that he is so uninformed on where public utilities come from, specifically water in the town of Alta? And at what point in the future should he be informed of how it actually works and what is contained in those applications? Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments today to the council?
Public comment.
It is public comment.
Oh.
You
I'm
have to
here,
stand up and
oh,
state your name for us.
hey, I'm Creighton Harden, yes, sir.
Sorry, it's for the audio.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Creighton Harden, just want to say hi to everybody, been a while since I've showed up to town council meeting, but, want to let you know tomorrow is Ace's 28th birthday, as a 501c3 and recognized by the town of Alta, so. Wish him happy birthday. And hopefully have many more years to come. Thanks.
Okay, any other public comments from the public? In that case, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is Mike Bond.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, that'd be
Do
great.
you want this?
Does it work?
Hopefully it'll work. We'll find out.
Great. So, maybe a little update first before we get into this review of our capital projects and such. Since we last met, maybe you may be aware of it, we had a major power failure in this year, March 26th, about noon. In the middle of my lunch with the Forest Service. Of course. We lost all power to the ski area and took us about a half hour to get everything switched over to auxiliaries and generators. Unfortunately, we were able to get everything up and running and ran the rest of that day. We actually were required to run on our backup systems for 3 days. And most people had no idea. That's what was going on, that it was a little noisier from the public standpoint, so it's, it's a tribute. I was amazed actually that we were able to do that and had very little interruption into our systems, but it took us about almost 6 days to kind of finally get utility power completely restored to the full ski area. We think it's a problem in our line going across the crossstow. We have a loop system, so we were able to finally isolate that, and we lost a fair amount of equipment and transfers and things that were a result of that. But we're up and running and fully on power, and I was kind of impressed actually with the Alta team and the teamwork that how we put it all together to make it work. But so we haven't truly identified the exact source. We know some of the results of whatever caused the outage, blew up different things around the mountain, electrical components and such. And we'll need to replace some of those this summer, but I just apologize for any interruptions and anything that may have caused in the town, because I know there was some, as that power was going on, there was some flickering of lights and other things that happened throughout the town of Alta, but we're hoping that's all past us. We've gained a little ground since we last met in this area as far as visitation and business. We're about 6% off of last year. We think we'll end up, if things play out as we expect, probably 5% off by the end of the year. So from a revenue standpoint, just for town planning purposes and taxes and stuff, that's kind of where that's gonna be. So I wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of update you. We have a really busy summer ahead of us coming up. Some projects going on here in the ski area. So what we're focusing on as a management team is we need to figure out how to spread out skiers when they come to Alta. We need to preserve the quality of our skiing experience and do it in a way that we recognize the impacts of climate change and the demand we're at, because there's a lot of people that want to come to Alta more than we can accommodate. So the areas we're focused on is snowmaking. That helps us early season with terrain modifications from safety standpoints, and also to make it so we can use less man-made snow in some areas. Keeping our skier and infrastructure up to date and balanced with demand and transportation. And some of the improvements we've done in the past few years fit into one of those categories that are there. So this year, if we look on the snowmaking side of things, this summer we have a major project. This is a map of the base looking above here at the town of Alta, and the stream right there. And that yellow and green line is where we have a snowmaking line, high pressure line that has become pitted and is failed twice now on us. It failed at the beginning of each season. We just get the pinhole and it can very quickly make a hole that you can fit a Volkswagen bus into it very quickly. And so we had one of those this fall, and the life of that line is passed, and so we have this project to replace that one. So it's grown a little bit. There's a few things in this project now. And the town of Alta is gonna participate and put a water line in there in conjunction. But we'll be digging a trench that will probably gonna be 10 feet wide and 10 feet deep. And it will have two 42-inch culverts in the bottom of it that are connected all the way across that we'll use to store water for snowmaking. So we'll pull water out, put it underground there, so it's a gravity feed into the pump house at the other end. And then on top of that, we'll have our high pressure snowmaking lines. Town of Alta will have a water line. And now we're gonna add another power line. Based on what happened, because that segment is dead right now for us, and so we'll put a new line in there to. It's also a little bit to deal with that.
Is that a like for like, or is that a new piece of structure?
It will be another pipe in the trench. That we'll put it in the trench, it's going to go in there. We may just put the conduit in if we find our problem. But if we can't find our problem, we can come across there, we may have to put the wire into it here. That's a major project that comes, so that'll be disrupted from all the way across the toe. Going into that project, it will start fairly soon in the summer. It may take most of the summer for us to complete that project. Tied in with that project is an upgrade of our pump house. So that little green square in that picture is the blue is purple, or blue purple type square is the existing pump house. It has two pumps in it. We're going to add two more to increase our capacity to pump water, so that as the days diminish, that you can have temperatures to make snow. We need to be able to make more snow in the days we do have cold temperatures. So we have to increase the water flow. That's the purpose for putting the culverts in underneath the cross toe, and then we will add that bright green square is where we'll add expansion of that little pump house. But right where that square is right now is where the backup generator is, and also where our transformers is. So they will move down to the red square. So that yellow area represents part of the parking lot that will be cut out, and the new pipelines and such put into there. We'll be moving the backup generators and the transformers over by the snowmaking cooling tower and expanding that building. That's all part of this summer's project.
Mike, is that part of your lift
backup power generation or is that for other systems?
That particular generator backs up the Wildcat ticket office and all the buildings here at the base. The Wildcat lift has its own auxiliary motor inside of it,
Okay,
and Collins is powered up at the angle.
okay,
Where all the power is from the angle Collins comes from. So, but this is all, it runs all the base living and operations and facilities that are there. So the other future snowmaking projects we have on the, coming down the road is the same issue with the snowmaking line from the top of the corkscrew to the angle station. Next summer, we're looking at probably replacing those lines. That's just down the road. Water storage expansion, we're still looking for ways to, increase water storage. So that we, going back to that idea of, it's not that we have our contract, we have enough water, we just don't have the capacity to have enough water on the days that it's cold. So we want to be able to, when it's cold, we might say, we want to make snow everywhere we can in the mountains. We're working that direction. And eventually, down the road along in the future, we have approval from the Forest Service to move snowmaking into Supreme, but it's not in the next year or so. This is the Meadow Pipeline project, so that would be the top of corkscrew and going up to the angle station that's there. And that's targeted for the summer of 2026. Terrain changes. So the High Traverse project, this is the High Traverse. You may have seen this doing this project last year. It's mostly handwork. And this, we started the path and we're working back towards Collins. We got a segment of it done this past season, and we'll do another segment over into the Sunspot area this summer. And we may stop there for a number of years. We'll see how it works. This has worked very well this year. Very pleased with the results that are there. We'll see how it holds snow as we get into the warmer springtime, as we started. Sometimes we lose the snow in that area. So we'll see how that goes in that regard. But we'll be doing work on that. We've thrown in this project. We probably are not going to do this one now this year just because of the other projects we have, but this is the bottom of Rock and Roll Ski Run. So if you're coming from the right side of that, you come down and then you turn and you kind of go back over and join in go back to where the cabins are and go around. This is where what we call the cabin owners gate, which you can go through and go down to the Devil's Playground. So right there in that little green square, you can see there's a lot of rock and dead trees and stuff. And it's been problematic for us to have that be the gate and have people go through there. We've had a number of injuries. So this project really is going in and just really not changing much of the terrain, but taking all the loose rock and actually kind of breaking up some of that rock so that we don't have rocks that people are jumping off of right in that particular area. And also we've had some people who've had some injuries. So it's to clean it up. Not a really big project. It's probably a day to 2 day project for us is all it is, but that's a little project that's on there. Our list, oops, go back, here we go. This is at the bottom of Supreme Cutoff. So we cut off to go over to Supreme or go back to Sugarloaf. Right there on the left of that orange little section that's a really steep breakover, particularly early season, the blind spot. We had a death in this area last year. And so we said we need to get rid of that blind spot. Right now, we get rid of it now. There's probably 12 feet of snow there. That's been man-made snow on top of the natural snow. So this project involves going in there and just detuning that side. The middle of that run is all wetland. We have to stay out of that. But so we detune that. And then the yellow polygon are trees that we would remove to widen that path that goes from that cutoff over to the Supreme. No terrain change, just removal of the trees because it's all wetland kind of through that area and that's little streams. So we'll just fill that with snow, but have more visibility and so you don't have the kids coming out of the, when it comes to the tree, that's not running that type. So it's kind of a safety issue that we have. This one also may get pushed back now based on some of the other things that come up. Building wise, so this is a big one for this year is an expansion of the Albion Daylight. So going to the east, adding 3 levels to this building. That's kind of a rendering of it a little bit. Bottom level has restrooms, seasonal walkers and some indoor seating. Out to Java moves over to the far east side, serves inside and out. Second level is expansion of the Albion Grill, more seating, a few offices in the back of that. The top level is all employee housing, 12 employee housing units that we'll be adding into that. It's a 2-year project. The hope is to get the building envelope done this year and kind of dry it in and then be able to finish it out the next summer, do that project. The, another building that we're looking at that's not quite as far as on, but we're hoping to either do this summer or next is this equipment storage building, cold storage building on the other side of the housing lot in that orange polygon that's there. There would be a number of bays. See, I might have an image here. So it's, you can see at the bottom there, it's 6 garage type doors, look like the cat shop a little bit. And then a little section that has some windows and doors, but it's primarily for storage. All of the things that we make a lot of trips to our warehouse. It's way out by the copper pit, you know, and it gets longer and longer every time you go. And more and more traffic and congestion. So the intent would be, and we continue to add equipment, we have to move like the Beeson boxes now and the mobiles, and so we would just be not intended to be inhabited, it's going to be a building that's built so that avalanches will flow over top of it. It's going to have right now the design has like a 7-foot pitched roof towards the parking lot. And then 45 feet of terrain behind it will have the same pitch. And there's a little gap that has some expansion material between the soil and the dirt and the building. And the theory, or the engineers have designed it so the avalanche comes down and hits this flatter area with the 7% grade, takes all the energy of it and is able to flow over the building with not a significant impact on the building. And then fall into the lot and goes from there. So that project is also, we're hoping, if we can get everything to move along, it was faster to, it's pretty simple building because it's just storage, it's not, there's nothing else really much in there, box. But if we could be able to do the excavation for both of these buildings this summer and get it done. This would be a 1-year build to get this building done. Lifts, so Sugarloaf lift, we're looking at the lift upgrade on Sugarloaf, maybe go back there, so Sugarloaf, where we plan to upgrade. We're changing from a DC motor and DC drives to AC drives and motors and putting a new comm line Sugarloaf. So it's about $1 million spend for us. To upgrade the Sugarloaf lift to kind of give it some more lift and life for us going forward. The other big one is the Supreme lift. We just signed the contract with the lift manufacturer and the Forest Service, got Forest Service approval to straighten that lift out. So we will remove the angle set to bend. And take that out and just pivot top and bottom terminals and make a straight line from the bottom to the top. That will be going on. So that project's going to, most of that project, we're trying to keep on the mountain. We have to remove all of the, you know, the terminals and the towers, try to keep everything that we can on the mountain. And so it's not very, it doesn't have to move very far before it's reinstalled. It's gonna start May 15th. They will, are hoping to be able to get to the bottom terminal to start that work. We will be plowing the summer road, starting the day, probably the day after we close. We may actually start plowing the summer road, start to shave it off before then. To narrow the snow depth on the summer road, and start getting it a little closer down, so there's not as much to move as we get to the end of the season. Again, it goes right through the middle of the campground, as you can see. So we're going to try to get cables, all of the things down and off, or need to come off of the existing lift. That need to happen before we open the summer road in the campground. And then we are looking at the campground closing on Labor Day for the season. And potentially closing access to above the Chasms Trailhead at that same time. For the remainder of the fall, so that they can be in there and do all the work that needs to be done to get that lift moved over. We still haven't worked the details out with the Forest Service, how that's going to work, but we anticipate we'll have some closures in there with the amount of activity that will be going on to change that lift alignment that's there. See here, that's the end of those, I guess. There's some other things that have come on the table since I made that presentation. Imagine that. We are looking at so one of them, as I mentioned, is putting in this new power line base to base going across there. We're working with UDOT on repaving the South Flagstaff lot. out here, just out here in the front. And also replacing the culvert that goes underneath SR 210 from the Tom Moore mine. It's an old culvert that's kind of rusty and falling apart, and so we're working with them. We would like to, when they do the culvert, also put some lines, some communications and power line across the road up into the Tom Moore mine. So we'll be working with you on that. The timing, don't have the timing from them just yet on that, but it's kind of a cooperative project between us and them to get that done, but that's planned to happen this summer. We also are looking at 4 more racks, decent towers going in on Sugarloaf Peak, the cast going in this year. But Solitude, I believe, is putting in 4 in Honeycomb Basin. So I think Suburb might be doing some also, but so we'll have 4. We're trying to have ours guys come in and be done by mid-July, that they're done, complete with ours, other than flying the racks at the end of the. In the fall, with the racks up there, which we would be doing anyway, that's there.
Mike, can I ask a question? Will that fill in that whole space all the way over to East Castle? Or is this just one more phase and you have some more to do?
This is a phase on Forest Service land. We own kind of from the castle wall back about halfway into Devil's Castle. It's area that's owned by Atlas Skiers, and I know by us. We're not doing anything on our land. We may do something on that in the future, but we're really just dealing with the most problematic area, which is Sugarloaf Peak, which is, it is the place we have the biggest risk and the most danger. And so that would be 4 in that area on that, but that's what we have planned at this point in time. We haven't actually scoped out where we would put the others on our private land, because it's not nearly as problematic as that area.
Okay.
It is for us. It's there. And that's the major projects that would
That's all?
back to town. I just got out of the meeting before I came over here, meeting with the lift manufacturer, trying to talk about, okay, what space do you need? And then I have to talk to the building contractor, what space do you need? We do anticipate through this that we will not have, a major portion of the Albion parking lot will not be available somehow. Possibly all of it. So it just depends on how much of these projects, if we're doing both the buildings, if we're, and then we will also be staging a little bit out of the Wildcat lot for potentially, if they need to fly any parts from the base up for the lift replacement, they'd probably come out of Wildcat, as well as the Beesons would be staged out of the Wildcat lot. So we anticipate maybe 3/4 to half of the Wildcat lot being available with Grizzly, and then we'll see with Albion. And so there will be interruptions also as this building is going on. It's the normal trail that kind of comes up Home Run and goes by Alps and on up to Secret Lake and the campground. We may need to do some rerouting or some closures in there during this period of time too, just to keep people away from the construction and site, what's going on. But any questions?
Yeah, I have some, I noticed that the Crosso line is, comes very close to the park. And I think of people playing volleyball and the volleyball falling into this 10-foot trench. And is this gonna interfere with public use of the park?
That's a great question. From a safety standpoint, there might be a period of time that should close. Just so that doesn't happen. We're gonna start at that end.
That end,
Wildcat, come this way.
okay,
But right after, within a few weeks after the ski year closes, all the pipe will be fused, a lot of it, and drawn under the snow. It's much more, does look much less damage if we can get all that stuff in place before we have to dig, and just dig. And then we'll start to come across, and I don't know at what point in time we'll be there, but I think we'll have to evaluate. I think we're intending to have some sort of a fence around the area that they might be specifically working in, off hours. Curious souls from wandering over and falling in the hole.
yeah,
Type of a deal.
yeah.
But then that might pose a problem if somebody hit the volleyball inside the fence.
Yeah.
So you then have to think about.
Just volleyball.
Yeah.
Or it will.
Not
Be
ideal.
careful, so
And some of these things you described as Forest Service approved and others you're either silent or didn't, and
They're all Forest Service approved.
they're all Forest Service approved, okay. And how about helicopter operations? That's always a, you know, of interest to the residents.
So that, yeah, so that we are going to try to have the batch plant for putting the footings for Supreme up in the basin. So maybe the Catherine's Trailhead, maybe somewhere down by, so that the chopper's just flying back and forth up there.
Good.
Not flying down into the town of Alta for when they're doing the concrete course for up in the basin. There will be some helicopter time when they're flying the teams to Sugarloaf Peak. And whether we can coordinate and base out of the same place, they probably will still be based out in the Wildcat. They would fly early, like I said, they're trying to fly June into early July and be done for those 4 towers. And then it will depend on after Labor Day, when actually footings of the concrete has been cured. And at some point in time, we're gonna have to fly towers. Some of the towers, at this point in time, the plan is to leave a number of the towers standing. And just when we get to the
Pick 'em
wall,
up and move
pick them up and move them. Towers that need to have adjustments made to them would have to be removed and adjustments made first. They're going to try to pick up the whole terminal with a big crane and just move it to the side on top and bottom.
Wow.
And put them back in place that way. And so we'll see how that goes. They might be using they talked about using a drone to fly the comm line. The new approach is you put the comm line under a drone and supposed to fly right up the loop line or down the loop line, whatever you do. So there's some newer construction methods they're trying to use that are there. It will be a noisier summer for the people that are in the basin with all that construction going on, for sure. Trying to minimize the amount of impacts, but there's gonna be a lot going on with the building construction here at the base. So you're gonna have a snowmaking pump house being rebuilt over there and the day lodge here and maybe a equipment storage building. All in the summer, just a little bit of activity, just gotta keep Chris busy, So, other questions?
Dan, you want to ask me?
I have no further questions.
Okay, John does.
John,
On you.
Second.
There you go.
Mike, this is a robust list of summer projects and I admire your ambition. This is quite a bit of work here. And I just wanted to applaud your continued focus on protecting the skier experience. So, thank you.
I would say, we have been a little challenged this year more with our parking system. I think we've had it in place for 4 years, it's working well, but people kind of figured out how to sit to their advantage in some ways that we're going to have to address. I mean, we've had days where we're completely sold out, but we're only filling 75% of the lots, and so we're trying to work on how to deal with the no-shows and all of those other things. But there'll be some refinements of some sort going into next season. I just don't know what they are today.
Well, I spent quite a bit of time on on Sunnyside this winter with my granddaughter. And I'm happy to report that really the lines haven't been long and it's just been a great experience out there with the 10-year-old skiing around and both the lift experience, but the on-slope experience too. I used to fear that it was so crowded she'd get hit or whatever, but much less skier pressure this year, and we've just had a bunch of great afternoons out there.
Great, glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that I think that the gate management by the lifties on Sunnyside is really terrific. I mean, they're filling the chairs they're, you know, it's. Everything is in order, you might say, and, it's really quite impressive.
You know, I always, when I write to people on the chairs, I always ask them where they're from and what they're doing and how they feel about Alta. Today I had 2 different chairloads of people that went out and tell me how different it was at Alta. In particular, how much more friendly and welcoming and exciting your employees seem to be at the bottom of the list. You know, and I think that reflects a little bit, you know, that us trying to preserve the quality of the ski experience. And also that we encourage and try to make it possible for all our employees to ski. Because they have that passion and love about it, it just kind of exudes from them as they interact with other people.
Yeah.
So.
And I witnessed essentially a rescue by, the lifties at the bottom of Sunny, where a kid didn't get quite on the chair. And they stopped it and went around and got her secured, and they were really on the ball.
Well, thank you. You know, a lot of this works is because as we all work together as a community and support one another to really take care of the guests that come here, because I tell my employees all the time that Alta's like a puzzle where every piece matters. And if there's a piece that's off, then the puzzle's not complete. And I think that extends brought to the Alta community as a whole, how we work with the town and all the businesses work together to take care of the people that come to Alta and make a great experience. And thank you for what you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Did you want to?
So question. Sorry. In the past, when there's been helicopter work at other resorts, you work together with them and flown them out of this lot. Are you gonna do that with Honeycomb?
Don't know yet. It's really the guys that install the stuff that's, you know, has coordinated that in the past, you know, that are trying to do the installation to try to minimize. Everybody's favorite spot is the Wildcat lot. I've asked them, I said, well, I thought you can use another lot. We have a lot of things going on this year. Can you use just somebody else, can you use them and haven't heard back from them. So, yeah, I made that request.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, indeed. Wow. What, is there a follow on to that? Questions regarding departmental reports? Would any of the staff like to highlight anything in the environmental report that's not, or on their staff reports that are not already evident? Okay. In that case, let's go on to approval of the February 12th town council minutes. And I think we have to approve these one at a time, correct?
No, you can say all of them.
Okay.
If you want to separate them out.
Well,
right?
let's see if we can do this. Can we have a motion to approve the February 12th town council meeting, the February 14th emergency town council meeting minutes, and the March 4th special town council meeting minutes, and the February staff and finance reports.
And the February 14th, 2025, I move that we do so.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Second by John. Okay, any objection? In that case, those are all approved.
You have to vote.
Oh, we have to vote.
All in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, you said vote, I thought you were calling us by name.
No objection, so they are all approved. Okay, that takes us to the mayor's report. And as soon as I find it.
I look like voice.
No, we'll get there.
Okay.
We are unfortunately finding that interlodge rules are being violated, often violated. And when interlodge is in effect, don't go outside is the rule. Okay? When the frequency of blasts slow down, do not interpret that interlodge is lifted. If you're unsure of the status, call the town office at 801-742. The recorded line is 3403, or go to the website. And on the website, there'll be a prominent scroll across the top that says interlodge in effect. It's not the duty of AML to go around and inform people of the status. Nor do we have resources to do it. It is the legal responsibility of the building manager to be aware of the status and enforce it on that property. Our policy is to encourage compliance with, by persuasion, not by coercion, and we haven't issued any citations recently, but we could. So our interlodge are to protect the public, keep the public safe, and it's important that we follow. The monthly SR 210 road meeting was held on the 5th of this month. Despite some significant snow events this winter, the main line has generally been open, and traffic has been moving with only an occasional red snakes, which is really good news. The UDOT crew has done a terrific job of keeping SR 210 flowing despite challenging conditions. Last Friday, the 45-day legislative session mercifully came to an end with a flourish of 176 bills passed on the last day. The traction bill, HB 196, sponsored by our House Representative Galen Bennion, passed. Powers the Highway Authority, that is UDOT, for our highway to create and enforce rules of how vehicles must be equipped to traverse the road. Most importantly, prohibiting inadequately equipped vehicles based on forecast conditions, which was not the case in the past. Another bill was introduced to create an entity called the Beehive Development Agency, which would have had authority to override local preferences regarding major projects. Now, allegedly it was only for major projects like a nuclear power plant. And I'm not aware of anybody proposing a nuclear power plant here in Alpha, but with this legislature, you never can tell. Vote by mail, which has been very effective for a little place like us, survived, but with some changes, and starting in 2029, one must opt in to continue doing so. Many of these bills have not been signed by the governor, and I think we'll attempt at the next meeting to have a complete rack up of all the bills that affect us. While we're on political matters, the municipal election is 7 months away. But that doesn't mean one can wait until the fall to think about it. Sign-ups are run for and there are 3 terms expiring: John's, mine, and Carolyn's. And sign-ups are in the first week of June. So I encourage all eligible potential candidates to give it some thought. I'm a big fan of multiple candidates on the ballot to give the electorate a choice. And that's where I am. Okay. The always present astronomy report. As forecast last month, Europa Clipper flew by Mars on March 1st. And here's what it looked like in 28 seconds. This is a big spacecraft. Those 2 solar panels are each the size of a football field. Whoa. Yeah, whoa. Okay, so it passed 900 kilometers, or about 500 miles off the surface of Mars, and it's going 24 kilometers a second. If we could travel that fast, and there was a clear path from here to the state capital, will take you 1 second to get there. So it's moving along. The next event.
What kind of solar panels are they?
Just like those on your rooftop.
No, they're not even.
The next event is a flyby of Earth in this December 2026, when we use the gravity of Earth to accelerate it on to Jupiter. Now, a month ago, an asteroid called YR4 had a 3% probability of hitting the Earth in 2024. Now it doesn't. How'd that happen? Well, astronomers take pictures of the sky. These are actually multiple pictures of the sky looking at the same portion of the sky. And nearly all those light spots are fixed stars, which almost all sky objects are fixed stars. That little green circle is pointing out 3 images that are moving with respect to those fixed stars. And by making measurements between those moving little spots and the fixed star background, you can calculate the orbit or the trajectory of that thing that's moving, which is YR4. And by doing that over some extended period of time, you can refine the orbit of YR4, and that's why we now know that it won't hit this time. Okay. Our next town council meeting is on Wednesday, April 9th at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And with that, we will go to discussion of possible action and adopt a municipal wastewater sewer planning program for 2024. Who's saying that?
Chris Steve is on the call. So, the municipal wastewater planning program report. Yes, I got that right. The MWPP report, annual report, is something we are required to put together and ask the council to adopt and submit to the state annually. I'm not sure that's a requirement. We've met diligently every single year in the past, but we're trying to do so now. And I just noticed that the document we included in the council packet appears to be incomplete. That form comes to us as a Google form. And the output, the way you create the document to include the packet for you all to consider is pretty difficult to manipulate. And I quite regretfully did not notice that the output was really insufficient to understand what our inputs were. There are a lot of multiple, if anybody reviewed it, you may have noticed that there are a lot of what appear to be multiple choice questions, choices including yes or no, for instance, that don't have anything highlighted. So I would propose that we don't take this one off today. I mean, this is really pretty minor thing. It's mostly transparency. There's not that much that changed from last year to this year. We may have more inputs that will change once we're done with our current round of infrastructure planning. But just because the report appears so incomplete at a glance, I would propose we just postpone this till next month.
Good.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I had just a quick comment that I agree with you. There were a number of missing answers, but also there's at least one answer I saw that was incorrect, which is how many lift stations do we have in the town? Answer 0. I actually, there's a lift station right outside my front door. So I know there's at least one lift station in town.
That's the service areas, John.
What's that, Steve?
That's the service areas.
Yeah.
Don't
But
don't
it's a
forget,
sewer. It's a sewer one though, right?
right, but it's not connected to our system. So the sewer line starts in Powder Ridge, goes down the bypass road, picks up the Meadows, then goes down through Snowbird. The Alta sewer line starts up in Leavettville, goes down across the Ropetor Road, and then goes down the main line to pick up Hellgate. That's why we don't have a lift station listed on this report, because we don't own it and we don't maintain it. That's what the service area does.
I wasn't aware that we looked at the sewer lines as separate like we do the water lines. I thought that we sort of looked at all the sewer as one And and then the water system is number 3 or the town water.
Yeah, so it's an ownership thing, but the way you would think about it, you're absolutely right. It's all one pipe. It's
Yeah.
pretty much the same size. It all goes down to the mouth of the canyon. From there, it goes into Cottonwood, and then it goes into Central Valley. But it's the ownership that they're asking about on this report. Casey has the same report that he fills out, and that's where he lists the Meadows lift station.
Thanks for clearing that up.
You're welcome. And so I just want to tell you, this is a pretty basic report. I noticed the same thing that Chris noticed. It's like, we answered all these questions. So when we did this, we answered everything. And I'm looking at it going like, what is going on here? So I can tell you last year was a relatively normal year. We did TVing, we did flushing. We didn't find any major problems. We did spend a considerable amount of time on the SAG and the gold miners lot that is in future projects to do. That's why if you looked at the money amount, we're kind of budgeting for that a little bit. But I don't think we finalized that project yet. And other than that, I've got a few things that I want to do, which is things working with Hanson Allen Luce. Just find a manhole, see if we can find out where some of this inflow and infiltration goes. That's meltwater that comes into the sewer when the snow melts. We may not be able to find it, but I want to try. So other than that, the condition of the pipe is pretty good. And I clean that flume in the Superior lot probably twice a month, because if I can keep that clean and keep grease out of there, ultimately you're probably going to save some money because you won't get charged for it. So that's probably a good thing in my opinion.
We like that kind of reports, but we'll have this more complete next month, right?
Yeah, there are some interesting details in the report. I mean, most of the interesting details I think are actually in the document, but most of the questions and answers are incomplete. So let's revisit.
Maybe though we should take this opportunity, since we don't see Steve very often. I just want to thank Steve for his years of conscientious service. It's really you've done a great job for us for many years, Steve, and we're super lucky to have you.
You know, every time we flush the toilet, we should really think about.
That's brutal.
Yeah, well, as long as it goes down, yeah.
And I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah, well done, Steve. Okay, let's go to the next item, which is.
I'll see you in a month.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Discussion possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-2, repealing and replacing dog license numbers. So, Brooke, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so we have a total of 94 licenses that we have been approved by the town council for every year. And we have recently gone through the list, and there have been 6 licenses forfeited. And we have a suggestion to the council that we split the 6 between A and B evenly.
Okay, so
the reason we suggested that is based on some of those, a few of those were the commuter licenses. And so basically, all of the licenses that were A and B are staying in those categories. And then we just allocated the C licenses to the A or B. And the reason for doing that was based on just what I've heard from the council over the years, as far as that's where they prefer to put that. But ultimately, that is a decision up to you.
Yeah.
So that is the main decision in this resolution, is where you want to allocate those 6.
So let's open that to discussion. Is Elise still with us?
No.
And Carolyn is not either.
No.
Okay, so it's just Dan, John, and me. So you want to start?
I learned the last time I waded into this with a broadsword not to do that. I think this is a reasonable approach, and I have no further opinion beyond what I think is reasonable.
Okay, John?
I guess I should have some disclosure here. I actually have a dog license and one of my children has a dog license, so I'm disclosing that.
Okay.
I think the management of this program has been great and allocating the licenses as described sounds just right to me.
Okay, and I endorse this distribution licenses also.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-2, repealing and replacing dog license numbers as discussed and agreed upon.
Second.
No, John seconded, all right, we need a roll call, I believe, okay, have a roll call vote,
Mayor Burke,
aye.
Councilmember Byrne,
Aye, yes.
Councilmember Shelley,
Yes.
motion passes.
Motion passed. All right, an impact fee update.
Well, the better dodging we've ever done.
Yes. Go ahead, Chris, excuse me.
An agenda item on the water project, the water loan project.
We can bring that up in the context of the budget. Yeah.
That's good.
That works
All
for
right.
you.
So, okay, impact fees. Can you put that report on the screen, please, bro? What's the best Alton Town Council dog licensing program agenda item we've ever had? We've been talking about what a functional town council you guys are, and this is a case in point for the class. Okay, so while Brooke locates that, we are bringing a discussion of impact fees in town of Alta impact fee program to you. Partially because we asked the council to include, I think, $10,000 in the budget this year to do an impact fee analysis. Or is it an impact fee facilities before, like, you can't always keep them. And we've done some research and some careful thinking, and for one thing, we think it would take more than $10,000 to do such a study. So there is a small adjustment in the amended budget to increase the amount we could spend on that. But we want to discuss really whether we want to do the study at all, and thus have an impact fee going forward with you before we take that next step. So impact fees are a somewhat limited and technical and really highly regulated municipal revenue source that local governments can levy on new development to finance the expansion of public facilities, which is a statutory term, essentially accommodate growth and allow the municipality to maintain the level of service over time. Impact fees are broken out into specific categories. Those are provided for in state code and listed on the staff report. Chlorinated water, sewer, stormwater, electricity, roadway facilities, parks and rec facilities, public safety facilities, and environmental mitigation. You can't charge impact fees to cover operations or maintenance expenses, and you cannot charge impact fees to cure existing deficiencies. So if there's something you want that you don't have, you can't use impact fees to pay for that. Enacting an impact fee is a laborious process. There are several steps you have to take in order to do so. You have to develop an impact fee facilities plan, IFFP, which essentially analyzes and identifies existing service levels and excess capacity necessary to accommodate future growth or maintain those existing service levels. It also identifies the city's means to meet the growth demands. The impact fee analysis is a separate study of development activities. So you basically go out and figure out what is going to get built, and then identify some specific improvements that would be required to maintain that level of service, given that there will be, additional houses or commercial developments or whatever using the water line or the park or whatever it is your impact fee is associated with. There are rigorous and specific noticing requirements for each step in the impact fee process. You have to file a notice of intent to do both the IFFP and the IFFA, and then another for actually enacting the impact fee by essentially adopting an ordinance and amending a fee schedule. And I think I read it right that in county of the first class, which is only Salt Lake County, we have to give written notice to the county, the state of Utah planning coordinator, and affected entities at each of those steps, I believe. So that's a lot of work. And finally, the counting and reporting requirements required to collect impact fees are significant. We have to keep each impact fee category. So we have to have a water fund impact fee account, interest bearing account at the PTIF, sewer fund, a sewer impact fee, so on and so forth for whatever kind of impact fee we want to create. And we have to encumber those funds within 6 years of collecting them and provide annual reports to the state auditor, and Jen kind of sweats over that. So we process annually. We do have impact fees in our impact fees account, so we do provide those. We do satisfy this requirement for now. If you don't spend the funds within 6 years, or encumber them rather, right? You have to return them.
With a definitive date, like you have to say, yeah, it has to be a very definitive thing, of like, we will use this by this date.
So
But that sounds, that's more of the IFPP, however many Ps it was, as opposed to encumbering, which is not the same thing.
Yeah.
That's just a
Well,
plan.
basically
To encumber
have to
them, it
use-
means an obligation.
you have to use the studies to encumber the fees. You do the studies to determine what projects.
Right, you have 6 years to encumber that money at least.
Right. Yes.
Which is different than those other things, which means that sounds like it's a contract that's required. Some sort of obligation of that,
Well,
rather than just determining what the plan.
you encumber them by adopting the plan.
Okay, all right, fair enough, even better then, okay.
Yeah.
That's what was the heart of my question.
And I guess just another thing I'll say about the burden of managing impact fees is that the state code is constantly changing. You know, Utah's a high growth state. Impact fees are a key tool that local governments use, not just in Utah, but you know, elsewhere to maintain public facilities. And in Utah, state code has changed really every couple of years for the last however many. And what they generally do is further restrict local government's ability to use impact fees. So they're a powerful tool if you've got a lot of growth. And you know, it's a burden to maintain existing levels of service. And if you don't, it's sometimes regarded as potentially not worth it. So we do have an impact fee on the books. Our impact fee ordinance has not been updated since 1998. We don't have an impact fee facilities plan or an impact fee analysis. We do allow a developer to prepare an impact fee analysis. Or consent to essentially allow town staff to do the impact fee analysis. State code doesn't provide for either of those options, so we're pretty clear, we can't do that anymore. Code does allow a municipal general plan to function as an impact fee facilities plan. I'm pretty sure you would have to have, well, you have to do that technical work and essentially put the outcomes in the general plan, so it's not just, we can't just sort of make generalizations about impacts and how we mitigate them in the general plan. We have to do some engineering, basically, for the general plan to function. We don't have specific costs in the fee schedule. We do have a line item in the fee schedule that says impact fees, but we think it doesn't actually provide any cost. So basically, there's just a lot of holes in our impact fee program, and we do have $23,571 in the impact fee account as of January 31st, but the funds are not currently encumbered because we don't have We've done the
state
technical
code.
work to determine what we can spend those projects on.
They were kind of collected under like the thought that the general fund was in that, was in a.
Yeah, well,
But that's, we don't think that that is up to state code currently.
And they were collected over time,
Yeah.
and state code has changed a few times since the oldest impact fee in the account was collected, so. So anyways, we want to bring this discussion to the council. I think the position we're in is that essentially we have to do a study in order to spend the funds that we have in the account. But like I said, impact fees are powerful tools in high growth communities. We're not a high growth community. Alta is generally built out given the well-known constraints to development and under current zoning. They are a significant administrative burden, so. We're not sure if we did a study, what kind of projects it would identify, because it's just not clear there's all that much eligible work to do that we would fund with an impact fee. So anyways, we can spend a portion of the impact fee money we have in the account on a study. That could be a way to defray the cost, but that really depends on when we levy them, because that is something that changed in state code recently.
Yeah, so fees collected after 2021 may be used to pay for the IFA and the IFFP. If we choose to put the impact fee analysis and plan in the general fund, we cannot use funds collected after 2021.
And I think that would only be a couple $1,000 a month that would meet that criteria. So it,
But $10,000 in total, if I'm looking at this sheet.
That was the previous, the amended budget should include
$10,000 plus a.
yes, but what I'm saying is out of that $10,000 or $20,000 that the impact fees that were collected, only like maybe 2, maybe 4,000, I want to say 2, well, that was collected can be used to fund the study.
Cause that's how we collect them.
No, the other funds were collected prior to being
21.
able to use, being able to use those to fund that.
that was an eligible project expense when we collected those.
So what do you wanna do?
The thing that we, regardless of any decision on moving forward with impact fees, is that we do need to update our code to match state code. That is
Yes.
definitely clear, and a to-do item.
Unfortunately for you, that will continue to change. So how great is that?
Yeah, right. So I guess, maybe you can tell we're leaning in a certain direction on this, but before I state that and answer your question, Dan. I just want to say, and I know John has a question comment, but I just want to say, we also don't know, because we're not engineers and we have done the technical work, and our water and sewer planning is not mature enough. Our water and sewer planning is not mature enough to give us some additional info. I was hoping 6 months ago that perhaps it would, but it's just not. And here we are today.
Let's let John.
So,
Yeah.
so sorry, let me just
Yeah,
conclude by
okay.
saying it may be the case that a study would produce eligible expenses, we just don't know.
And that study would be the IFA.
Or the IFFP.
Okay, all right. I do not want to delve into that.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. I generally agree with the conclusion here that this would be a lot of work with uncertain return, while I agreed with the basic notion that from a residential construction point of view, we're mostly built out. Seems to me we're on something of the eve of what could be a sustained redevelopment of existing commercial properties, the construction of a new commercial property. So I think the culinary water one is the only one that really makes any sense to me, and that would, the revenue of that would largely be driven by the connection of larger commercial properties to our system. So I could see some revenue opportunity there. So just throwing that out. I will say that I would not, I think we have some pretty pressing matters on the capital side. You know, we've yet to integrate any of the FFKR recommendations into the capital plan. I think that's probably the highest priority. You and I had a good conversation about that last week, Chris. You know, at least the life safety recommendations out of the facility study, you know, should receive some high priority attention, you know, hopefully between now and the end of the calendar year. So I think there's some things that are more pressing. If I was going to have one of these in the back of my mind, it would be the culinary water one, because I think there's probably some chance that we'll see you know, significant amount of commercial construction over the next 10 to 15 years. And it's burdensome if those projects aren't paying any impact fee. That's just burdensome on the rest of us. Thank you.
That's a really great, that's a really great observation, because I think it's a likely trend we're gonna see. I agree. I think there's a real possibility that some of these structures are gonna get redone in that time period.
But if they just get redone, like for like, there's no additional impact. So they really have to change materially. And one thing I'll just add is that, if the Toronto State does any development, they're doing their own water and sewer, so. Well, they're doing their own water. They're doing their own water, so there's no water impact fee to collect from them, because they're gonna have their own water system. As an example.
But when you looked at the water study, which was different than the FFKR one, there's a couple of pretty significant deficiencies that are going to be capital intensive, particularly the tank, which it's unclear whether the Schrantzes are going to build the tank or not. So I do think that there's going to be some expense on that side. So figuring out some way to capture some offsetting revenue would make sense to me.
It may be possible, but I still like, I guess simply the fact that we have identified that need with current conditions and the projects we're discussing are like we need to do those projects regardless of whether the Peruvian expands.
Right, they're not specifically related to that construction.
Yeah, they're not, so we have to be looking at different projects essentially.
Well, you may be right. There's just really no there may just be no low hanging fruit here. So
We've talked to, you know, Bryan Head is our best corollary in a lot of ways. They're small, they're alpine, they're somewhat special purpose. They have substantially more development potential than we do. And what the town manager there described to us is that they have an impact fee, they have got all the technical documents. And they kind of sit around waiting for these developments to occur to charge an impact fee. And they don't really know when they're gonna be able to collect that impact fee. So they don't know if like 6 years could pass and the development doesn't occur. And then they're out that revenue that they plan to collect with an impact fee. So just as an example, we're not Bryan Head. I think your characterization of the development potential as being more commercially residential is right on, so I appreciate it.
well, and it's important to remember that if we don't explore this area, I'm sorry, was somebody else speaking?
No, go ahead.
You know, I know Roger has expressed concern about the outlook for water rates. And, you know, if we can't find other revenue sources, it's just going to mean higher water rates for us individuals. And with so few people in the denominator, you know, only a few hundred keys, you know, it's going to be burdensome for the rest of us if we don't figure out some alternative revenue sources to try to address our longer term system issues.
Yeah, fair point. So we're kind of looking for direction, whether to, we've added a budget amendment to add $10,000 to what was already a $10,000 budget to do a study. I think, John, I think you do raise an interesting point about the potential for essentially commercial upsizing, build out of the hotel properties primarily, and whether that could generate a justification for an impact fee. So that's really what, I think you're right, that's the thing that we would focus on if we're gonna do this.
So Chris, in addition to the numbers you're talking about, how much of the study would be done externally and how much staff time? I mean, how much would be done internally by the staff and how much can you basically outsource?
I'm pretty sure these are engineering projects and that they're mostly outsourced. I'm sure we'd be feeding data to whoever does the project, the service area, and maybe Steve McIntosh would participate. But it would be mostly consultant time. Yeah, so.
I think it'd be similar to other RFPs and things. I mean, I wouldn't discount the amount of staff.
No, I don't mean to necessarily.
No, my take from this, John, based on your input, was that with the money allocated there, you recommend that we keep that option open by acting on this to at least do an IFA. Is that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough call, but because I think, as I started out by saying, I think really sort of wrapping up this capital planning phase and actually seeing these studies become projects on our capital plan and really dialing in the longer capital plan still should be the priority for the staff. So I'm reluctant to give them another priority, but if it's as Chris just said, that it wouldn't take a bunch of staff time, maybe we should take this $10,000 step and then make a bigger picture decision.
I guess one question I have for Cameron maybe is, if we don't take any action right now, if we don't amend the budget or we don't do a study, we've got this ordinance that we know is long in the tooth. What position are we in?
Well, I think without a town ordinance that is compliant with state law, we would have to follow state law. And so the state law would require us to identify the 6-year deadlines and contact those that paid the fees and return them. If they don't, if we can't get in contact with them, we have to publish a notice and pull it for a year, and then we can use it as an impact fee at some later time. But that's gonna be the default. We obviously need to rework the ordinance. And by the way, since 2015, when the majority of the current state code was passed, it has changed 15 times. So it is a moving target. It's nearly impossible to hit.
Well, that was my observation too, because like my offhand comment to Jen, it's like, what an easy thing to manage.
Yeah, so we would have to just apply state law. I do think it would be worthwhile for us to get a town code that's current, even if it simply just references the state code. It's gonna be the default anyway, but it's nice to be able to highlight for people to look at. And then the flip side I would add is, even though currently there may not be much build out, with real estate prices in Utah expanding, some of the other towns that I work with have experienced an increase in development because previously it was not financially feasible. But with the cost of real estate and the demand, it is feasible now. And so areas that before were never considered for building are now experiencing that. And so one way or the other, either with an IFA and an IFFB or in the general plan at some point, I do recommend that the town have one of those options completed sometime. It doesn't have to be now. If we do the IFA now, we can use a portion of the funds to pay for it. That's the benefit. But otherwise, we can put this off, but I think it does need to be done at some point.
Well, and also such a convergence of the sunset of this, legacy plan that's probably not adequate anymore and more compliant, combined with some of the money we already have. to maybe, and John's observations to, we might ought to just do that.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right, I suggest we do it too, John. Oh, Carolyn's here too now, so.
Yeah.
Do a study.
Yeah, that's my recommendation.
So that if you approve the budget as presented, that'll secure.
So what you're telling me is, here's what I should do. I move,
Well, no, hold on.
damn it.
Hey, we're not quite to the, we talked about a few budget things before we
Okay,
approve it, and there's no, it was just a impact fee update.
Mm.
There's no decision
sorry.
to be made in
Yeah,
this
right.
item.
Yeah, right.
Giving you some
Thank you.
background.
Thank you though for that, it was a
Yeah.
great discussion.
Yes.
You do, John, that was key input, and Cameron, what Cameron said at the end about things changing, he said that to me a couple of weeks ago, and it was super cogent, you know, the procedural. I'm not sure what our impact potential is for the foreseeable future, but the rate of change increases. Industry and the applicant are turbulent, and we don't know, we may need an impact fee sooner than we understand now, so a little bit of labor at this point with her.
Cameron, may I ask a question? If we do one now, would we have to update it every 6 years?
There is a deadline, I don't remember how frequently,
Like with the 6 year I think that's what I remember, like.
but once you have a plan to update it is really like an updated appraisal or an updated.
It's not a lot of moving parts at
It's
that
not,
point.
right, you don't have to redo the whole thing, it's just that we don't have anything right now.
Until you check up all those projects.
Yes.
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 That's right.
You need more.
Okay, I think we're ready for a discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2025-R-4, recommending the fiscal 25 budget. You wanna say anything more about that?
I would love to.
Please do.
So, I just wanted to highlight that the major changes in the, so. I sent out like a version 2 of this to the council, and I kind of tried, I hope this helped you, but I had a summary. But there was like kind of color coding on like,
Mhm.
the yellow was the first version, and then the
Yes.
second version, I have kind of like a third version that you have not seen, but what this budget amendment includes is receiving a mental health grant and expending some funds, it's seed money from the state, Ed Spencer won the award, and so we're trying to honor that, and he's gonna be managing and setting up this program for mental health for the Alto Marshal's office, so congrats to Ted, so we're acknowledging that and rolling that into the budget with this action. The impact fee change as well. We have some changes in the capital projects fund just because of the change in income into from the general fund into the capital project fund. And of course, the rope tow project, and Chris might wanna address that, it sounds like, a little bit. One other thing I wanna point out to you, and this is, I apologize, but one of the challenges with using Excel is that I must have clicked on the infamous loan from the water fund to the general fund, and I just deleted that cell in what you saw, unfortunately. And so when you got it, there was no number in there. So I would like to make sure that that number stays at the 61,400 in the expense line item of the water fund, which would change the use of the water fund reserve. That would go from 470,000 to 531,000. So I hope if you are going to approve a budget amendment, that we can include that change to bring that money back in that I mistakenly deleted.
Yeah, but it was there before.
It was there before, it
Right.
was just I must have had too many Excel documents open and I clicked on them.
I thought
be
we
a cat.
decided that the loan repayment was a balance sheet adjustment and not an income statement item.
That is true, but it still shows on our annual worksheet. And then I make a little note that the payments have been made so that the council knows that that's happened. And then, yes, it is on we changed how we did that. So basically, the in line, if you look at the current year to date for 514810, previously it showed as 61,400, now it shows as 0 because we've worked it off, we've moved it from the budget worksheet to the balance sheet per
Right.
John.
That was a good thumbs up.
I
Yeah,
had,
it
s-
was-
I had a little generalized comment about these changes. These are really fairly perfunctory changes, and none of them I see as controversial at all, and that's great. It means that the budget that we passed a couple months ago is still largely the budget. I'm sorry.
No, don't
Go
say
ahead,
anything, it's
go
all you.
ahead.
Yeah, I think I must be hearing my own echo or something. Yeah, no, I think these changes, it's good. It's more of a housekeeping nature. I don't see any really major economic changes here. And I stand ready to approve the new budget.
So check this out. I'm going out on this limb.
Can we?
No,
Sorry.
You're good, you're good.
Not to take time or labor or anything, I just, the big amendment to the budget is to the water fund budget.
Yeah.
And that is because of this capital, the big project we're trying to do this summer that Mike talked about earlier, so. And I have some slides in the packet that I thought we were gonna do a separate agenda on that one, but I missed that. So because it's such a big amount of money and a big change to this year's budget and has implications for next year. Just talk about that,
It's
it's transparency.
the 505,
What's that?
the 505.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Total.
just by way of that little update on the project, which is moving along nicely, so, we're gonna know if you're able to navigate down to the swans.
Crossword liquor. Is this what you want to put?
That is the impact, there you go, that's basically,
Yeah.
okay.
This one.
So, alright, some of this is recycled content from last month, this slide has not changed. It's, the scope of the project has not changed, since last month.
But the price has.
Yeah.
But the price, I can't recall. Yeah, it must have been in the meantime, a lot has been happening, so it's something to keep track, you wanna move down in the deck, Brooke. So a couple things have happened, we did get Forest Service approval, that's super exciting. Thanks, that it's partially the relatively certain amount of this approval is because it was materially approved. In the forest approval of the ski areas utilities project last summer, so they had to just reconsider a couple things, given that we're gonna do some excavation in one spot where the ski area will not. The final design is complete, it was submitted to the State Division of Drinking Water with their comments back. So that step is well underway and should not pose an issue. We're a little behind the schedule I sketched out for procurement, but we did issue an RFP on Wednesday. We sent it directly to a few contractors, we got kind of excited responses from contractors and some questions, so I think we've got some bites, and that's a good sign. Still, I'm uneasy about the timeline, particularly to procure materials, but I've never bought 4,000 feet of pipe before, so. The big news and the reason I'm up here talking is, yes, that the costs went up, we have talked about that in a regular council meeting. The cost estimate we had before was from the master planning project. So the cost estimate, so the master planning project does not have nearly the specifics that this design project had. There are a number of assumptions that were different, for one, it was shorter. Basically, it really got that cost estimate in November, I think it was. And there were a lot of details in the project that we wanted to find, and yes, it was shorter, the alignment terminated at the bottom of the Alpha Lodge Hill. Now it runs all the way over into the Buckhorn lot, so it's a bit longer. Another thing I'll say is that the $905,000 cost is from an engineer's opinion of probable cost, and my understanding of those is that they are extremely conservative. Because you wanna have all the room that you need for overruns, for short-sightedness in the bid schedule, it's thoroughly itemized, and we've had some great dialogue with the ski area project manager, Tom Giardina, who's really awesome, as Mike knows. and Casey at the service area about ways to kind of value engineer to reduce the costs. And we know there are a couple line items in that EOPC and the bid schedule that we're not gonna have to spend on. So anyways, the final cost is most likely gonna be lower, but we don't know how much lower. And the next slide, what's a great question?
Question, I mean, have you factored in possible new tariffs and?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I mean, I don't know, costs
No.
are going up, you know.
No.
Sorry,
Oh,
just go
that's
on.
all right. Okay, so this is the key slide. So this one has changed a bit from last month. So the project costs up to 905 from 405. The budget amendment, the FY 25 amended water fund budget assumes that we cover $400,000 up to $400,000 worth of this project in fiscal year 25, and that $505,000 potential remainder is spent in FY 26. There's some unknowns there, obviously. But we assume we have to procure all the materials and deliver them to Alta. So we assume we need to be able to cover those costs this fiscal year. On the left in the chart, we have some numbers. And the sum on the bottom line shows that the water fund will show a slight negative balance at the end of the fiscal year if we spend all the money we budgeted to spend this year, as well as that $400,000 on the project. And Jen has discussed this with Steve Bradley, our accountant. He assures us this is not a problem. And I'm not going to attempt to use the term pooled cash in a coherent manner. If Jen would like to try to describe why this is okay.
Cold cash.
Pooled cash.
Pool cash. Alright, yeah.
It's a very small amount, and
Yeah, 16K.
so while it could happen if we extended the budget in full, I suspect we probably will not go into the negative, but don't admit that.
Okay. So that's project cost. We will not be back up to $505,000 plus operations and maintenance expenses in the fund by the end of the fiscal year. So we assume that we will have to borrow money from one source or another in order to fund the entire project. The option we discussed that has really the fewest strings attached and the most flexibility for us is an interfund loan from the general fund to the water fund. We'll have to make a variety of decisions, a lot of decisions that aren't specified in the slide, such as what's the term, what's the loan amount and what's the term. So we will have to decide when to effect that loan. Is that this fiscal year or next fiscal year? We're not, we don't have anything prepared for consideration with this budget amendment. Doing it later would give us a little bit more flexibility to see what the final need to make a loan is. So I think what we've been assuming is that we would not do this until next fiscal year.
Not do the financial,
We're not doing the loan.
not do the loan, okay, we do the project, but not the.
Start the project.
Got it.
Yeah, it's a little unclear to me if we're in item number 11 now or item number 12. This seems a little more like item number 12 to me. So my comments about there not being a lot of substantive changes in the budget, item number 11, that did not include this change to do this project for 900 grand. I thought this was number 12. This is an important change. The cost of doing this project is increasing significantly. I still think we should do it. And my one preference to express is that when we write this loan, whether it be in this fiscal or the 26 fiscal, and I like the idea of having it be a 26 fiscal event, that we should include the remaining balance on the outstanding original general fund, water fund loan that was 400 grand that we've been working to pay down. I think we should roll that into the principle of this. And I think it's really important that we create a note and follow the
You're muted, John. John, you're muted.
Still muted.
Still muted. There you go.
Yeah, so I think I hit my key by accident there. So my comments were that the existing budget, item number 11, not too many important changes, feel pretty good about all that. But this is an important change, and I think we need to, when we do this, which we should consolidate the debt between the general fund and the water fund into a new note and rigorously follow the steps as outlined by the state for making these loans, which those who came before us failed to do.
Yeah, so you basically consolidate these loans and make the terms very clear as to exactly how they're to be paid. Yeah.
In 26.
In 26.
Yes.
And just to be clear, FY 2025 budgets includes 4 funds. So it includes the general fund, the capital projects fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. So you are approving budgets
For those others as well, in this resolution.
So
Right, we're doing this year's portion of the water fund budget is changing the water fund budget.
correct.
Yeah.
Are we?
I'm still not gonna say anything. One of you's gonna have to do it.
I had one other little note about this year's budget, since I guess we're bouncing back there. I think it's important to look at 4539-100, which is transfers to the capital project fund from the general fund. And while it doesn't have the long history of this, these transfers are going down dramatically this year. It's going from $600,000 last year, transferred from the general fund. It's sort of the year-end zeroing out transaction. Has been running north of $500,000 since we've been on the council, Roger. We're now projecting for this year that it be only $140,000. So it's signaling that the party may be coming to an end in terms of these excess, significant excess capital amounts. 140 grand is not very much money to be transferred when
Aren't you
we've
saying
gotten
that
used to
we're-
600 to $1 million every year going into the capital projects fund. That world is changing.
I mean, aren't you saying that we're doing better at forecasting what our?
Well, except that we're forecasting less of a revenue surplus than we've enjoyed the last few years.
Yeah.
Craig, is that right?
Yeah, you're right, John, and on that note of being a little bit more conservative, Jim, I think wisely changed the methodology for forecasting our revenue next year from a rolling 3-year average to basically the same as this year. And I think we enjoyed an excess period there where we were generating excess capital, and I think that's ending. And so we gotta be really tighter on the forecasting, and back to your point about, impact funds or wherever else we can find revenue, we need to be sharper our pencils on that.
Are we ready to vote on this?
I think item 11 is ready to move, but I still refuse to.
The party's over.
Can I
Time
also
to
just
call it a
remind
day.
whoever makes the motion to hopefully include that edit that I said at the beginning about missing the.
All right, I will give it a shot.
Thanks.
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-4 to amend the FY 2025 budgets with the understanding that it includes the general fund, the capital fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund.
And
And
the 60.
Oh, I'm sorry, and the additional $61,400.
That was omitted from the report.
And we will return that into the report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll second one.
All right, Carolyn seconds. Any further discussion on this matter? In that case, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrne,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
and Councilmember Ansel.
Yes.
Motion
Motion
passes.
passes.
Does item 12 then, John, do you need to add something then to 12 based on those other things you were saying?
12. Well, can we have a quick conversation about the capital plan? The thing about 12 that I think is important to recognize is that it is not yet including recommendations from either the water fund study or the facility study. And I think an important goal for here in the remainder of fiscal 25 is to start to figure out which of those projects that the facility study points to are we going to prioritize. And to me, the ones to prioritize are the ones related to life safety. And I see those as the electrical system upgrades in our buildings where our electrical systems aren't to code, the panels aren't to code. I think that should be its own sort of RFP project. There's no way we would ever try to do that in-house anyway. We don't have a licensed electrical contractor working for us. So I think getting a project together, an RFP together to outsource the upgrade of the electrical systems would be one that I would start with. And then the ones related to the foundation issues at Alta Central, the lack of earthquake strapping. That seems like a pretty important life safety issue to me. You know, we had some movement in the building with the big snow year. I think doing what I think they're calling seismic upgrades, but would also positively impact the building's performance in big snow years. Those are the two that I would focus on from the FFKR report.
Thanks, Sean.
Excuse me, John, I have one question. How about the water tank for fire suppression? Do you want to move that to higher priority?
That's a very complex question because as things currently stand, the settlement agreement with the Schranz estate from 2014 makes it their responsibility to do that project. There appears to be some momentum toward possibly amending that agreement. If we go ahead and build the tank ourselves, I'm going to say that it's less likely that the Schranzes will ever be paying for it. So I would sort of leave that one out there because I'm not really prepared to walk away yet from the requirement that they do it. It's the only thing in the 2014 settlement agreement that we got. I read the agreement again this week just so it'd be fresh in my mind. There's very little in there that benefits the town except their commitment to build this water tank. So I think building the water tank is very important. But if we just go ahead and do it, how are we ever going to hold their feet to the fire to do what they said they would do in the 14 agreement?
Well, I'll just add on that whatever development they do or, say they're gonna do, they're gonna have to build a water tank. They have to have their own water system. Unless we totally nuke the settlement, the stipulation, both agreements, both the Salt Lake City Schranz agreement and the Town of Alta Schranz agreement, which is a exhibit to that. They're gonna have to build a tank regardless.
It warms my heart to hear you say that, Chris. That's the happiest thing we've said so far today. I think but what that equals is maybe we don't jump ahead and do that one project, even though we think it's really important, because we want to see it unfold as you just described, where eventually they pay for the tank.
I think that's a big expensive project, so funding it is gonna be a heavy lift. Depending on when the Schranz estate would build the tank, it could affect the size of a town developed a tank. I mean, they're also not, well, anyways, let's not get too far into that, but I think you're right to recommend that we give that a little while to play out and pursue the other needs on the system.
Well, and when I look at this from a risk standpoint to life, which is where John started the conversation, you know, we can't do all things all the time. And by focusing on these other two areas that we recognize are high hazard, in fact, it's the fire code electrical thing, I think is probably the most likely to be a risk to safety for folks. I think we're doing the appropriate thing in prioritization, and it's in addition to being fiscally, you know, strategic with regards to this tank thing.
I agree with that. I agree with that, Dan.
I think all that's to say, I think we move forward with those two.
And it's not even on the plan yet, right? Like, it's not on the plan because we don't have final outcomes of the master planning project yet. I know John and I have talked about inputting some of those draft project concepts into the waterfront tool that John has worked up that we look at. But it's not in this capital project plan we're amending today, so that's just something for a future plan amendment.
So does this change?
But I think we're trying to provide direction to you, Chris, that we want to see you prioritize the life safety related ones, and we'd like to see them in this plan prior to the next budget amendment. I think we should at least start to have placeholders for them in the plan. That would represent some progress, I think.
For sure. Yeah.
Does that work for you guys? For you?
Definitely.
Okay.
That's fine.
Do we need to add to this, John? Do we need to add anything else to this?
Nope.
Maybe I'll just announce that also, I mean, I think it came out of one of Chris and John's conversations, but was kind of a request to try and be projecting fund balances. So I've started working on including that in the CapEx reports without burdening them too much. I kind of have a little simple math that I think should give us some good ballpark figures and stuff and help us planning on that. So we're working in that direction.
Sounds good. I feel like I can go out onto a limb.
And
I'm nervous, but I will say, I move that we adopt resolution 2025-R-5 to amend the capital projects plan as discussed and agreed upon here for prioritization with regards to health and safety.
I second that.
So we're approving R5 before we approve R4?
We already did R4.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
And I believe R5 is being approved as submitted.
Yes.
And you've given us direction on future versions.
We did, and you should do it as discussed and agreed upon verbally in the meeting of March.
Personally, it's on the record, so.
12th.
Excellent.
Yes.
okay, now it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion of item 12? 2025 dash.
That was great discussion, actually.
Yeah, it was very good discussion. Okay, Madam.
Councilmember Ansel,
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling,
Yes.
Mayor Burke,
Yes.
and Councilmember Byrne.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, new business from any of the
I have
other,
new business.
you do,
which
all
is
right,
Kind of cool.
let's hear it.
Two things, for everybody that's left in the room and the 3 citizens who may ever hear this. I have a book signing on April 1st at King's English. It's my next book. I mention it only because it is a memoir of the last living miner to have worked in the Alta mines in the 1950s. Dick Fluey, if you know who he is or of him. I wrote a memoir with Dick. It's being published by the University Press. And so we're doing a book signing with some Q&A and stuff like that at 6:30 on April Fool's Day at King's English. There'll be a follow-up event. I've only scheduled 2 at Snowbird on April 11th at lunchtime. Be a similar thing. You can come down, have Dick sign a book. His stories are off the chart brilliant. They are so funny and insightful. And I think it's a historically significant book for mining history in the US because It is a first-person account of how miners thought, worked, and talked. And that's not what you find in mining history, which is very dry. There was some ore. There's a town, some saloons, a couple murders, the ore runs out, and it's a ghost town. And this is living history, so I encourage people to come. And the only other piece I have to mention, because I follow this in the blog I write for the Canyon, is the women's arm wrestling competition last night, which is run by Ace brilliantly, and it's such a great community thing. But our town is failing. Snowbird has won 4 years in a row, and it's crushing us, and I, as a male, have no ability to affect the outcome of this at all, except to encourage Alta women to bring it very strong because the town.
We're out shoveling when it takes place.
Bring it strong. They brought, I was informed you guys brought it stronger than the last 3 years, for which I am proud, but we must win. We must be victorious. Those are my 2 items.
Well, those are, really.
Victory must be ours.
Are there any other new business by council members? Can you top this?
That's pretty good.
In that case, item 14 is discussion of possible action to commence a closed meeting. I don't believe there's any interest in doing so, so I recommend we just not have a closed meeting.
I don't believe anything's changed that requires one at this point.
Yeah.
We're waiting for stuff.
Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the Uptown Council meeting of March 12th, 2025.
And okay, any objection? In that case, we're adjourned. But John, I did want to make one correction, and
Yes, sir.
You said you referred to something that Chris said is the only happy thing that you've heard today. I'd like to amend that and say the other happy thing is it's asteroid R4 is not going to hit the Earth. That's time.
We do need to vote
Oh,
instead
we
of.
do need to vote? Oh, okay.
Technically, yes, you need to.
It doesn't have to be roll call, but we do.
Yes,
All
you
right.
can't just.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
No way. There's no way.
15:58.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you.
John, see ya.
13 minutes over. Not too bad.
I apologize for taking an extra 3 minutes.
No, that's